welcome back to your weekly PlayStation podcast, Talking the PS, where we round up all of the gaming and video game news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/Helix Plays Games, or up there, available in those digital clouds on your podcast preference of choice. We've got a great show lined up for you this week, talking about the PlayStation Slim is on the way this year, apparently, a Red Dead Redemption remake, and The Last of Us Part 3 may be here sooner than we know. But before we get into all that, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all of the great content we do here at Helix Plays Games, just like this very show, our weekly Xbox podcast that goes live every Monday, our monthly Amazon Luna show, and all the other great live streams, watch-alongs, and video game stuff we do here. You're joining myself, Chris, alongside the returning from the Big Apple and I don't know what Montreal is, the man of many pixels, Mr. Richie. What's Montreal?
I don't know, but the apples in New York are normal sized. They lied.
Are they really?
Yep, absolutely normal size. I saw a few. I went through the market in Grand Central Station, saw a few apples. Noted the size, fairly standard. So the entire city is a lie.
That's disappointing. But what are you going to do? I'm sure the rest of the trip was fantastic. Welcome back. It's nice to have you back. Hopefully you're not too jet lagged. Now it's been a few days. You've been home a few days.
Last 2 days I've actually been with you, and I am slowly coming back to human levels of being awake. I pretty much slept for an entire day when I got back, and the problem with that was my body was still in New York time. So it's like I was getting up after midday. I need to get this back round to like normal levels of getting up at maybe 8 o'clock so I can go to work on time on Monday.
Ooh.
Or yesterday, for you listening, we're recording on Sunday.
Every audience member who is a parent, myself included, just had like a little...
You give me such a dirty look the other day when I was with you, and it's just like, oh, I didn't get up to 12:30, and you just looked at me with such disdain. It was epic.
What is that? What is a sleep in anymore? But yes, I'm glad that you're back. Point of note, Rob is busy still. He's been out with us actually all morning, so he's not got time to travel home and get set up for this. So he will be back. He's not anywhere overly distant like New York or Montreal. But I'm glad to have you back, Richie. And we start all of our shows with asking a little bit about what we've been playing. But obviously you've been on the move, so you've been on a plane. But what have you been playing? Why have you been on a plane?
I've been on 5 planes. I played a bit of Zelda, not actually that much. Even though I had a 7.5-hour flight on the way back, followed by an hour and a half flight on the way back, I didn't actually play anything on them flights on my way home because I couldn't be bothered. And I just wanted to sit there and just watch some TV, watched Avatar: Way of Water. Very much enjoyed it.
Good.
But yeah,
does it
to get some sleep.
Increase your likelihood of wanting to check out Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora then now?
No, it hasn't really moved the needle. I mean, after the Ubisoft Forward, was it Ubisoft Forward that was?
Yeah.
You saw it? Yeah, at the Ubisoft Forward, I thought it looked better than I was expecting, and it looks like it's going to be a good game. And I've always held why I wasn't overly interested in the first movie, and I wasn't really that interested in Way of Water because it feels like so long since a movie that I'm not interested in. But the world of Pandora always seemed ripe for further exploration, and I thought video game would be good for that. I was more concerned with it being Ubisoft making it because their track record is a bit sketchy at the moment. But it's looking like, this is basically me echoing what I said at the Forward, where this could be the turning point for Ubisoft.
Yeah,
going forward. They're finally getting away from that late PS3, early PS4 era of games that they were making.
Turning the ship around, except for the Skull and Bones ship that is still unfortunately being dragged to Davy Jones' locker. Well, even though in the midst of you not being playing anything there, now you are home and you're back at work, you've got your sleeping pattern back on track. What are you looking forward to sinking your teeth into now you're back in the saddle?
Well, before I left, I was playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think I was about 2/3 the way through, so I intend to just finish off Tears of the Kingdom, and then see where I am after that. I've still got Octopath as well to go back and finish. So they're probably the 3 I'm going to focus on. Although I've been talking about these 3 games probably for months now. But it's also the fact that my bank balance isn't very healthy right now, so I don't really want to be buying too much.
No surprise.
PlayStation Plus, do me a solid. Give me something awesome.
We had a good month on PlayStation Plus this month. We talked about it on last week's show. Go check it out. But
I did listen to the show, but I can't remember what was there.
It was Endling with the Fox. It was Call of Duty Cold War, and another one which is I say it's eluding me. I could just genuinely scroll down on our doc and see that it was Alan Wake in remastered. Yeah. Literally 2 scrolls down, the answer was right before my very eyes.
Maybe I'll give Alan Wake a go then.
Alan Wake, you could, but that backlog, it's took a hit with you being away. As with all adult things, if you've got work to do, if you've got holidays to take, family to see, friends, merriment to be had, it always slips down the priority ladder. And I'm no stranger to that as well. My last week, I was away for almost 3 days with work. We've been out celebrating some local summer events, and I've spent time with my daughter, my family, and it's just gone in the blink of an eye. Like, we're actually recording this quite late, like on a Sunday evening, and we usually try and get them in the way Friday, Saturday, so they're banked. And our Helix Heroes can get this show early, so apologies, Helix Heroes, you're getting it still early, don't worry, but not as early as you may have hoped. So apologies in advance for that. But in the midst of all that, I have been just chipping away at Final Fantasy 16 as much. I know you've listened to my thoughts on the previous episodes, so I won't go into them here yet again.
I totally called it.
You did, and I'm sure we'll discuss it more as the week's gone. But yes, Final Fantasy, absolutely loving it, adoring it, and really enjoying what I've played so far. So I'm looking to really get my teeth into it this week. I'm not away with work, so I've got a bit of time to sink into it. And I think my calendar has cleared up somewhat in recent times. But we're here to talk about PlayStation, Richie, and that's what we're going to do this very week. As I said, we've got a great show, but we can't get into the news until you introduce us to the
properly prepared PlayStation perusing points, aka the news.
The news. Slightly delayed on the animation because I clicked the wrong button. The news. It's like I've been away for 2 weeks. So the news is brought to you, of course, as always, by our Helix Heroes, and a special shout out to Inlead. We know you always listen, watch, share our content. We love you, buddy, and thank you for becoming a Helix Hero once again. Richie, we spoke a lot about the last couple of weeks and months about the kind of future of everything. We spoke yesterday on XPass about the future of Xbox and Game Pass. After all this FTC court stuff finally settles down, the gaming industry the dust will settle. E3, or what not E3 was, Summer Games Fest, is winding out. We've got Gamescom next month, which a lot of them have said they're going to attend, but in the midst of all this fallout, we did get one final note that cropped up this week, and it seems as though we might be getting a PlayStation 5 Slim later this year. So Microsoft thinks, according to some FTC documents that came out as the court case wound down, we'll be seeing a PlayStation 5 Slim on the way later this year. They said PlayStation likewise is going to sell a less expensive digital edition for $399.99 and expect to release at some point a reduced price point. This is according to the report. So we've had rumours for quite some time about a digital PlayStation 5. That's been kind of trickling around for a while now.
One already exists.
A detachable disc drive is the one I meant. Sorry, yeah. So a digital one, but with the option to attach a disc drive, which would, you'd imagine, push both SKUs into one bracket. You want the discs, there's the disc drive, but the predominant one SKU will be just this is the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, I think that's probably where they're going with this. I've seen some talk online while I was off, but about maybe is this going to be like a Pro, or they're going to change the specs? I'm expecting it. The current 2 versions of PS5 basically have the same specs.
Mm-hmm.
It might have slightly different, because sometimes you do get that variance over the lifespan of the console. But I think this is basically just going to be the next PS5. But I think it will technically probably replace both models on the market right now.
Yeah.
Because what that would do actually is streamline Sony's manufacturing process, that's where the detachable disc drive comes in. So you can buy the console as digital only, which is where they really that's the one they want to sell you.
Yeah.
They'd rather you have that one, because then you're paying the digital store prices, which are usually more than if you go to Amazon for the actual physical retail, especially if you're not getting games day and date. I actually looked up an example. Jedi Survivor came out end of April.
Mm-hmm.
RRP $69.99. It's currently listed at $47.99. So you can save 20 quid in 2 months.
And again,
so that's
again for us people.
That's why I got the disc version, because I know I will save money in the long run over the lifespan of the console. But Sony don't want you to do that. So I think having the detachable disc drive means they're hoping people will buy the console, just get sucked into that digital marketplace, and probably not bother with the disc drive, but it's there if you want it. And that way people don't point the finger at Sony being like, oh, you're just trying to
Yeah.
destroy brick and mortar or anything like that.
And it's an interesting thing because it has happened before. Like, who watching, listening along, you and me, has a PC with a disk drive? I don't. It didn't even come with one. It was like an optional extra. I have a portable disk drive that I use for work, and all I literally use it for is to play Roller Coaster Tycoon. Even though I think I own it digitally now, actually.
My last PC has got a Blu-ray drive in because I got it as Blu-ray was coming out.
Ooh.
And back then, I was still using a lot of DVDs to play games. So it's like, well, this is the obvious next step. And then everything pretty much in PC was ahead of the curve with things shifting digital. With things like Steam, like pretty much was already ubiquitous at that point. But you'd still occasionally buy the odd disc here and there. But then I just basically never used that Blu-ray drive.
It is almost just an acknowledgement of like phasing out the future. I think if the next console iteration is detachable disc drive and a slim model with a detachable disc drive, and then the next generation of like the PlayStation 6, will they just commit to digital completely, do we think? Like,
I think that's what they're hoping to be able to do. I don't know whether they'll be able to. I think there will always be a bit of controversy around it because the difference between PlayStation and Steam is actually a third-party marketplace.
Yeah, you can get everything.
Like on PC, you can get other marketplaces. There's GOG, there's like other Ubisoft have their own, EA have their own.
Yeah.
Like there's Epic Games Store. On PlayStation, it is PlayStation. That is your storefront. You don't have a choice. So that is a different. It's not apples to apples in that situation.
Yeah.
Not even big apples or little apples or normal sized apples.
Apple don't even do a console. But in terms of the roadmap of the future of this, I guess they always need an element of physical for those who don't have good internet structure. There's big chunks of the world still that aren't up with the times, but it's definitely them leaning there. And as you said, a big reason behind that, and most business decisions, is usually money. And you're completely right.
It streamlines the manufacturing process because instead of making 2 consoles, they're now only making 1 and a disc drive, and the disc drive will be a lot simpler to make. It's Sony, after all. They know what they're doing with this stuff.
Absolutely. And let's face it, a lot of the brick and mortar stores that are out there in the world, they're on their knees anyway. Like high street retail is in general, let alone the gaming element of it.
I actually went to GameStop in Montreal, and I was quite underwhelmed. It was smaller than like the local game, the closest game to us.
Right, okay.
Like in size, it was like, when you walk in, I thought, I'll walk in, I'll have a mooch around. It's like, this was in a major shopping center and right in the downtown Montreal. I was like, this is kind of crap. And
Montreal's got a big gaming scene as well. Like there's a lot of development studios up there.
Multiple Ubisoft studios, which I didn't visit because I had a Google Maps and they were nowhere near me, and actually didn't look very impressive from the outside. Not even like a big sign or something I could get a photo on. It's just like, it's just like an office building.
It's just there. I did go to PlayStation Liverpool this week. I tweeted out about that. There's a picture.
I went to Nintendo on Rockefeller Square.
Oh, so we both had a busy week doing touristy spots. Yeah, I didn't actually go in. I just kind of posed outside in front of the sacred symbols, like, "Hey, look where I am." I was a bit drunk at the time, to be fair. And my work colleagues were like, "Why do you want a picture with like a triangle, a square, circle, and an X?" And I was like, "You just don't get it. You don't get it. It's like this office is way cooler than anywhere we're going tonight, but not to them. Not to them."
Yeah, I mean, I went into the Nintendo store, went there, saw it, bought a T-shirt.
Got the T-shirt.
Surprisingly not overpriced. Actually, it was only $15. This T-shirt, this Legend of Zelda T-shirt, which is why I was expecting a premium considering the location, and this is officially branded merch. I've got a Legend of Zelda T-shirt upstairs I bought from QWERTY, which is less expensive than this. More expensive, sorry. It's like, all right.
Does it have Nintendo's official seal of approval?
It does not. This one does.
Like that little gold.
I got Nintendo points for this T-shirt.
That's cool. But points then to the PlayStation Slim. I'm quite a big fan of some of their revisions in the past. If we think back to previous models, I love the little PS1, like the tiny little dinky one that we had. We had the OG PlayStation back here. It's the big boy. We love it. But yeah, my sister got the PS1, which was a little slim one. That was just cute as anything. You could fit it in your jean pockets. That's how compact it was. Obviously, classic PlayStation 2, the big block. We love it. But then, of course, like PlayStation 2 Slim, I think was a big point for Sony is why it hit the 155 million units that it did, because it was that DVD player, perfect combo, and it was so tiny, the PS2 Slim.
Well, with the PS2, this launched at the time when DVD players were just starting to make their way into people's living rooms,
Mhm.
and it was one of the best on the market and also significantly cheaper than most of the ones on the market. It was from a reputable company in Sony, and it was a games machine. It's
Yeah.
not when you look at it, this was a perfect storm for PlayStation.
And again, just from an engineering standpoint, just think of how slim the PS2 went from the big one to it was literally like a quarter of the size, and it's still there. And it played PS1 games and PS2 games. Like the backwards compatibility and everything was just sublime. And mine to this day still works, and I absolutely love it. PlayStation 3, we had like the George Foreman grill PlayStation 3, the original one. I actually had the 60 gig version, which had backwards compatibility with PS1 and PS2 games, which was like crazy thing that they just dropped that for the reiteration of the model. Then we had that weird slim one with the slidey top. I did not like that one. That was the one PlayStation 3 version I didn't like. And then we got the kind of smoothed off one. So I think the PlayStation 3 is probably the worst iterative versions. PS4, we got the classic PS4, just the double stack, the double Big Mac. And then we got the Pro, which was the triple Big Mac. Which again,
there was a Slim. Well, I don't think
was just one tier, just one tier.
I don't think they ever branded it as a Slim, but it was small. I think it was just a slight like retooling of it. Because that's the one my dad has.
Yes, I got one for the bedroom. I got a special edition Days of Play one, which was like a PlayStation Blue with the gold sacred symbols on the top, and it has like golden sparks of like triangles and squares coming out of it, and it is gorgeous. The control's really nice as well. Yeah, I think that was like their final one. And again, PlayStation 4 sold so many. So we've got our big chunky boy, the PS5, sat here.
Yeah.
Weighs a ton. You could kill someone with it if you dropped it on the head. What do you expect from a Slim? Like, how slim are we expecting? Because the hardware in that, it was all about the cooling, wasn't it? Is why it was so big in the first place.
That was the point I was going to make. I think part of the design shape of it is intended to be probably bulkier than it needs to be, probably as a deterrent for people to put into like the media center where it's not going to get good airflow.
Yeah.
Where if it doesn't fit in there, you can't put it in there. It means you put it on top, it gets all the airflow. It stops Sony getting a lot of complaints. They're getting complaints about how it being an ugly monstrosity, but they're not getting. But people still buying it. They're not getting complaints about. I spent like £500-600 on this thing, and it overheats instantly. It's like because
it needs
it in a cupboard.
So like without being.
So I don't know like how they're gonna deal with that.
Well, without knowing really the inside out of the tech, like I can't imagine the cooling systems have came along leaps and bounds in the last like 3-4 years. So I mean, technology is magical, isn't it? How, like the way they can get microchips the size of a pinhead now is astronomical to begin with. So the fact that in maybe 4 or 5 years of R&D, they've managed to streamline it.
It might not be a different cooler. It might be a more optimized airflow system, so they can get roughly the same amount of airflow, but in a different package by moving things around on like the main board or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like more that distribution of it, and so I'm not sure.
Now, of course, we should caveat all this with this is Xbox believing that they're going to launch it this year. I guess if you're going to believe anyone outside of Sony, Xbox should have that inside scoop knowledge of, because they have to compete, right?
Yeah, and it makes sense that they would do it. Like, we know they're trying to like optimize their like manufacturing costs and stuff. We know they've had to push the price of the console up because of like, well, they say that they could have took a financial hit, but the business are not going to do that.
Yeah.
So it feels like, by getting rid of the 2 SKUs they have now and replace it with a single Slim of similar power with a detachable disk drive, which is an optional extra, it feels like that's a smart move from a purely manufacturing perspective, which would make them, if it costs them less to produce because they're not running 2 separate production lines. They're only running one, which means that they're going to produce them quicker and more efficiently. It also means that they're not going to have, I don't know how the sales stack up between the 2 SKUs at the moment, but let's say, for example, the disk drive sold tons and no one's buying the digital. That means they've got a ton of digital stuff sat on shelves not doing anything. That becomes a non-issue if everyone's buying the digital version and then choosing whether or not they want the disk drive on.
Yeah, I can see the disc drive as well being like, it'll be white and black. It'll have like a funky warp shape to it.
I'd imagine it'll attach and it'll probably look like it's meant to be there.
Yeah.
It'll be designed. You look at the launch of the PS5, everything from the controller, the console to the headsets, everything was just like
sci-fi.
matching. Yeah.
So, speaking of that then, where do we think this leaves the PlayStation 5 Pro? Because they seem to be in this realm of like Apple, they like to do a Pro version, Pro Max version. If we get the Slim this year as rumoured, so we'll have the Slim for $299, the digital PS5 for $399, and then the disc version for $499. Again, give or take your country. I know the price rose everywhere outside the US anyway, so probably a little bit more. I think it's $550 over here now, pounds. Where do you think this leaves the Pro then? Do we think the Christmas after? Like, we'll be then 4.5 years into the PlayStation 5's life cycle, so ideally past halfway. Do you think next summer?
Yeah, but I think this is going to be the longest console generation.
Yeah.
By far, easily, because people are liking, oh yeah, most console generations maybe 6 to 8 years. But this has probably had the slowest transition.
Well, COVID didn't help as
well.
We're
talking, we're like 2.5, almost 3 years into the lifespan of the console, and we just feel like we're coming to the end of that transition point. So that transition hasn't happened in like 12 months.
Yeah,
it's happened over 3 years.
Assassin's Creed Mirage comes out October. That's still multi-platform. That's PS4, Xbox One.
Yeah, so you can argue we're still in it. So I'm not quite sure. I don't think there's any rush. I think they can intentionally just delay bringing out a Pro for a few more years and use it to expand, to push the console life even further. And I just don't think they need to make that move yet.
I'd agree. I think we're nowhere near pushing the current PS5 to its limitations yet. There's no real I know there's some people saying like the Final Fantasy is making the consoles overheat and stuff, but I've had no problems with mine so far. But in terms of, just like the optics of everything, I also, as a consumer, I don't want to have to think about spending another $500 anytime soon. Like, the longer you can delay that investment cost, that's better for me, because my good old trusty one will work.
As well. Like, we're just coming out of an era where people literally couldn't buy one. People were trying to buy them and couldn't. So do you really want to release a more powerful SKU now, and after people just finally got their hands on them and go, you don't end up with people having that buy remorse. You want them people to have a couple of years with the console, then to entice them on to buy the next one.
Yeah.
Because the ideal situation for Sony is everyone who currently has a PS5 now to sell a Pro to.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that. They probably won't even get quarter of the way there. But you want to create the optimum situation where people actually want it. And at the moment, the Xbox it's not like the Xbox is head and heels above in terms of power or anything. So they're not worried about what Microsoft are doing. They're not looking at the PS5 and going, oh, this feels underpowered compared to the Xbox. If anything, you'd argue the other way around right now.
Yeah.
Although I think the Xbox is technically more powerful.
Yeah, it is. It's the most powerful console in the world. It was the whole marketing thing. Yeah. So yeah, it must be.
But the game, relatively to the games, you're not getting that extra power. Isn't translating to performance.
Are you telling me Redfall didn't push the boundaries of Xbox Series X? No, you're not feeling that.
Yeah, see, this is what I mean. So it's like there's no market pressure for them to do it. Yeah. So why rush?
Yeah. Final Fantasy looks gorgeous.
Why not just continue working on it? Keep developing the console. Optimize it as much as you can. Take your time and drop it when it's needed.
Yeah, I agree. As long as possible. Is that a mic drop there?
That was a mic punch.
Mic punch.
I'm a bit rusty, guys.
Sorry to any Michaels listening or viewing out there. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's interesting. Again, we saw it coming from Xbox. No surprise. It's almost, I could imagine Sony waiting to pull the trigger on the Slim this Christmas or maybe next year, depending on how sales are going. It kind of goes on to like the PSVR 2. Is that like still too pricey? I've not really heard anything from both Sony or people we know of the industry or online socials. I'm hearing no buzz still for PSVR 2 because there's no games out for it, I guess, like really. But the more less said about that, the better. But yeah, PS5 Slim Model. Interesting developments coming up maybe later on this year. Another thing we may be getting later on this year, Richie, is back in the Wild Wild West, there's a little game called Red Dead Redemption. One of my favourite games of all time. I think most of our listeners viewers have probably checked it out, or the sequel to some degree. There's been recent whispers around the web that Rockstar Games is on the verge of announcing a resurrection of the PlayStation 3 classic. Now, there was quite some rumours a while back when the Grand Theft Auto remaster happened. However, they fecked that one up so damn well that it put Rockstar off going back to any other remasters. Seemingly Red Dead was always in the pipeline for that one. My guess is they would probably try and do it in the Red Dead 2 engine, just like kind of like bring it up. That, like, if anyone, again, spoilers for Red Dead Redemption 2, there's a big chunk of that game where you go back to the original game's locales and basically play parts of the first game, and you go around the towns and the villages and such in that engine. So they've almost pretty much done the job to begin with. However, there's a leaked Korean ratings board which has been quite good in the past for tracking this thing, because you've got to remember, these rating boards don't just make shit up. They're like officially government ran rating boards usually, and companies have to submit games to be rated. So this isn't just anyone just rocking up with Red Dead Redemption on a piece of paper and saying, can you score the card that for me, please? Yeah. So there is some truth in this. And listening to other podcasts and stuff around the social world, which I do, one in particular, the Sacred Symbols podcast by Colin Moriarty, formerly of IGN, he's spoken to people. He knows, he's got evidence, facts that there's actually an announcement potentially coming as early as August, which could be some hype for Rockstar. While we still wait on news for Grand Theft Auto 6, it would be maybe a nice like gap filler. Over to you though, Richie. John Marston, Red Dead Redemption. Would you like to see a remake, remaster?
As someone who never played it, yeah.
You are kidding me.
I didn't have a PS3, and it never came to PC.
PlayStation 3.
I'd never had one.
Damn. Wow, that's a shock.
So it was one of them games where I heard about it, I heard you raving over it, and I was pretty much just pure PC gamer at the time. I think I was mainly playing PC and 3DS.
Wow.
And it just never came. And
Well,
I don't know if it's come now, but at this point I'm just like,
it's too far back. It's too far back.
Yeah. So a remake or remaster could be really good, and it's been long enough. It's what, 13 years old now, the first game?
Yeah, 13. So like, I remember the first game. I was like, I think we were in like just finishing college, going to university. So like, say, it's a lifetime ago. And yeah, so I've got such fun
older
memories.
Than The Last of Us.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly.
Which, and that's been remade, so
yeah. I mean, nearly everything has, hasn't it, the last few years? But it is just kind of that. There was the massive love for Red Dead Redemption 2, Game of the Year award winning, of course, and then the unfortunate Rockstar didn't really support Red Dead Online. They got a lot of stick for that. They didn't support anywhere near they do Grand Theft Auto. So then I think this might kind of appease Red Dead fans a little bit, bring it up to scratch. And like I said, the way to play this now, you've got backwards compatibility with Xbox. It's not really accessible on PlayStation because there is not a PS4 version or a 5 version
of it.
There is, yeah. It runs on what is now PlayStation Plus available, but it sometimes dips in and out depending on its availability. In terms of it, though, I think it's primed. I think it would look fantastic. It would fill a gap. My big ask, my big hope and dream is that it includes the Undead Nightmare DLC. That, to this day, is one of my, if not my favourite downloadable content. Of course, not downloadable, but content of all time now. It's a big, massive campaign. It's basically zombie mode before zombie mode was truly a thing, but it has a story that links in with it as well. It's not just like zombies show up and you shoot them in the same game. It's like a whole separate thing. It got a physical release back in the day, a standalone physical release. That's how big it was. And unfortunately, Rockstar have never gone back to it. I don't understand why they haven't done an Undead Nightmare in GTA, because that would just be phenomenal.
Was it more single player?
Yeah. I mean, there was online components, but single player.
You look at what GTA 5 did. GTA 5, predominantly a single player game. The online thing completely took on a whhole life of its own, and is what's led to the fact that GTA 5 is still in the charts right now.
Yeah, which is
last time I checked, at least. It's insane. So when they've looked at that, when Red Dead 2 came around, they try to just capture that same lightning in the bottle with Red Dead Online. And I just don't think it was as popular.
Yeah. So with the rumour of August then, my guess is we might see something at Gamescom.
Yeah, it seems likely.
Yeah. Now, Take-Two, Rockstar, traditionally, they don't attend these things. They're big enough to just do shit their own way. They don't need an E3. They don't need Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest. They could just drop a trailer for Red Dead Remake and it would get millions and millions of views and hype and journalists, and it would get all the oxygen in the room. So August, yeah,
but it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to steal the show, though.
Oh, that would get such. Even though it's a remake, I think it would get a massive buzz to like round the show out with.
Yeah, but I think it's up there with Final Fantasy VII remake. I think that's how people like who've played this game will look at it.
Undoubtedly.
Although, I mean, there's a bigger period of time and different quality between Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII remake.
Yeah,
but it isn't that kind of same vein.
Yeah,
like
you could just
get that. If you just got that trailer, it's like, oh, the one more thing at Gamescom, and people are like, wait, is this Red Dead? And then it's Red Dead remake, and it's like, bang, there you go.
Jeff Keighley just says, and one more thing, lights go out, you just get a Western. Wow, wow, something like that, and then you hear like saddles, spurs, or whatever it is, and then just
you wouldn't even need much. No. Just as a just a general Western set, and then someone just said John Marston. It's like, oh, they've done it. They're doing it.
There's a snake in my boot.
Then you just get the stinger with the title card. Red Dead Remake.
Yeah. Of course, should point out Red Dead Redemption, the second game from Rockstar in the Red Dead series. We had Red Dead Revolver, which a lot of people forget about, which was more of a shooter than a GTA style. And then we got Red Dead Redemption as the sequel, then Red Dead Redemption 2. So it's an interesting trilogy, essentially. But we'll most likely hear about that in the coming weeks as evidence mounts for Red Dead Remake or Remaster. There was something funny I wanted to touch on regarding it, though. Devolver Digital, who, again, had a fantastic Summer Game Fest, as everyone's moved over to Threads this past week, which we should point out, I did intend to say at the top of the show, we're now half an hour in. We are on Threads. If you are migrating from Twitter across to the world of Meta's Threads, search for us at Helix Plays Games. We are there. We'll be posting there, I guess, just as we test the waters and see if everyone's flocking away from Elon's platform over to Mark Zuckerberg's platform. And,
it feels like stepping from one evil den to another.
It does, yeah, it does. From better with the devil, you know, they say, but this is kind of a weird metaverse, ironically, way of doing things. It has got over 100 million subscribers already in less than a week. So if anyone's going to do it and make it right, because I think everyone's just fed up of Twitter at the moment, we won't get too much into it, but my algorithm, I just see shit that's got no interest to me, nothing. Like, even on our Helix Plays Games channel, like official page, where it's specifically tuned to just follow people in our community, games, and then whoever we're linked in with, PlayStation, previously Stadia, Amazon Luna. Like, we just follow the big people. Like, sorry for anyone out there expecting like a refollow, follow for follow kind of thing, but our official account is just that. It's for business. All of our social accounts.
Clean. Yeah,
for you.
We keep it clean, so we're following things like journalists and stuff, so it's easy to find this information. That is the kind of the point of what from our followers.
Absolutely,
it's very curated.
My own personal account, I'll follow whoever follows me, as long as you're not a dickhead. But either way, back to what I was saying. We moved over to Threads, and Devolver Digital are also on Threads, and they're always funny. That was tongue-in-cheek comedy. They tweeted out saying, since we're all doing intros like we did, our first post was, here's the Helix Plays Games channel, podcast, shows, live streams. Come check us out, follow, like, subscribe. Devolver Digital just went, since we're all doing intros here, we're the publisher of cool video games like Red Dead Redemption 2. Please follow us if you want Red Dead Redemption 3. And just put some cover art for Red Dead 2. So they're just out there as a publisher, straight up claiming they made Red Dead Redemption 2, which seems like some proper shady shit. But tongue-in-cheek comedy. Some of their replies, Richie, to people in the comments thread was hilarious. Captain Boomerang asked them, "Why did you abandon Red Dead Online?" Their response: "Wi-Fi went down." Remco Jassens asks them, "Is this a mobile game?" Devolver Digital: "You move in it, so yes."
And what about Starfield 2? Cancelled.
It was just brilliant. They just basically it's Devolver Digital doing what Devolver Digital do. But if I was their lawyers, I would be very butt clenched at that claim that you made Red Dead Redemption 2.
It's clear parody, though. So it's like,
but from an official game studio, it's almost like cutting it close.
What's Rockstar really going to do? Ask them to take down what do they call them? Just threads now? Just take down the threads?
Yeah,
like,
take down the thread.
I can't see.
No.
To be fair, if I was the head of Rockstar, I would probably have a chuckle about it.
Yeah.
It's one of them. You know what Devolver Digital are like, and it's clearly tongue in cheek, and it's very much disprovable with a very quick Google search. It's like,
and Rockstar are famous for comedies, or like Grand Theft Auto, like humor and comedy is like their thread throughout their entire series as well. But yeah, I just thought it was a nice, funny aside to the story of Threads. So yeah, we're on Threads, folks. If you're on Threads as well, give us a follow, and we'll check you out.
I haven't yet.
Well, my problem with it is it's obviously tied to your Instagram account, but my Instagram account is very personal. It's not like a public-facing Instagram account. So how do I get Threads when my Instagram is not? I have like a Twitter account that's separate for gaming and hosting and shit. So I need to think that one through. I might just keep the official one. We'll see how well Threads does. But we digress. Next story of the week, we move along to the world of Naughty Dog and The Last of Us Part 3, because report leaks over the weekend from two internet tipsters who are usually more traditionally known for scoops on Marvel TV shows and movies, quite accurately, have revealed that Naughty Dog itself is planning to start shooting later on this year. And we've also got some news around potential characters. So Part 3 will supposedly introduce 5 new characters: Lucas, Mason, Val, Ezra, and Gracie. These 5 are reportedly part of a group of scavengers who are said to be surviving on the outskirts of a post-apocalyptic city and are using a Victorian house as their base. According to the leaker, the characters develop a relationship with another younger scavenger, and it'll turn them to show the dark side. The young scavengers could perhaps be Gracie, the previously named one, who is said to be between the ages of 18 and 25. Mason, meanwhile, is a former soldier who must choose between his loyalty to other characters in the group when Val gets put in charge. So there's quite a lot of insight depth here. Finally, Ezra appears to take on some sort of antagonistic role. Report they want to take over the group from Val. As for returning characters, fellow leaker also states that Ellie will be a big part of this one, although there's no word on whether Abby and Lev will yet return. But major filming is set to start the year, and yes, Ellie will have as much as a role to play in Part 3 as she did Part 2, according to this one. So we've knew about this for some time, no doubt, Richie. It's an absolute nest egg of money that Sony and Naughty Dog are sitting on. Of course, we covered the entire Last of Us HBO series here on the channel. If you've not checked out the Clickercast, it was a wonderful 9-episode series, short-run podcast that we did following, reviewing, reacting, and discussing the show. Still up, it's actually still not up now on podcast services, probably YouTube. Check it out on YouTube. Check out our lovely faces talking about The Last of Us. But we said all along, the success of the show will have, if anything, spurred Sony on to print more money with this IP. And my guess is Naughty Dog's key focus is probably on, even though they've got a new franchise in the works and they've got Last of Us Factions, it has to be getting this out in time for maybe the HBO series wrapping up, or season 3, or whatever it may be. What's your take on the characters and the seeming approach they're going to do with a new group of people? Does that appeal to you?
It sounds like it could be interesting, but I'm struggling to believe a single word of this sort of thing, because Neil Druckmann was very clear that at the time, that they hadn't started working on Last of Us 3. This was during Clickercast, that they hadn't really even started working on Last of Us 3. They hadn't even decided whether they wanted to.
He said they had a script, right, but it needed to be fine.
Well, they said
locked in.
They'd only do it if they could come up with a compelling story. So it felt like probably early days of kind of sketching out what it could be. So this could still be very early days of just writing that story. Because imagine a story like Last of Us is going to go through many iterations before it's actually.
So here's the thing, though.
I don't know.
How much of that is just lip service to get people off the studio's back?
Oh, it could be Tony. Could have pretty much had the building blocks of the story complete before Last of Us 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how he approaches. I can imagine some authors do pretty much working on stuff later. And I'm trying to remember what it was.
George R. Martin.
Yeah, I mean he's terrible for it, but some authors were pretty much so deep in. It might actually been Last of Us 2. When I think, what did Neil Druckmann say something about during Last of Us 2 that he when they were writing the original Last of Us, they had so much stuff that they realised that they were already writing the second game.
Yeah, the sequel was already well underway with the story of where they wanted to take Ellie and Joel.
So it depends whether that kind of creative approach came again during Last of Us 2, or as he went, no, you know what, I'm going to now focus, just zero in on Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah. Well,
then gives it empty going in for free. It's hard to know.
Well, he did say throughout the whole run of the TV show that they had multiple things they wanted to put in the game and they didn't have time, so they actually brought into the television show because they had the autonomy to do that. I do think there's added pressure now from the people at HBO and probably Sony to say right, let's keep this machine ticking over, because we can't have a lull, because it is business at the end of the day. However, I do think a big pro, which I think Naughty Dog could really benefit from, is Craig Mazin's input. like he co-wrote and helped direct and produce the series for HBO, and he seemingly is like best mates with Neil at the moment. I would not be surprised if Part 3 had some writing credits for Craig and vice versa. If they're planning for the TV show, he's got to be on the inside now, that precious council of Naughty Dog crew to talk through long-term plans, because if Part 3 of the game doesn't line up with their potential goal for the TV show, there could be some conflict of like interest. And I think they're both good, solid writers. Like, they could help each other out, which actually could speed up the process for Part 3, if it hasn't already.
I wouldn't want like Neil Druckmann and the Naughty Dog team to have that sort of creative restriction on them, where they're having to basically write a game that also works as a TV show.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't how Last of Us 1 and 2 were made. They made games.
Yeah.
And then they found a way to convert it. I would very much prefer them to have that. I have no problems with bringing people in from the TV show to work as co-writers, but the focus should be, for me, at least from my perspective, on writing a good game. Rather than writing a good game that also works as a TV show. But there again, I think The Last of Us, the nature of that, the style of writing, does translate well anyway.
It's so cinematic.
And they've shown that they are willing to tell basically the same story, but change how it flows.
Yeah, I agree.
And that worked. We know from the ClickerCast now reviews on every episode that it kind of just worked. It got to the heart of the story, but told it in a different way.
Yeah, completely agree. And hopefully, we'll regardless of the leaks for this, like we'll see something by the end of the year for factions, because it's getting a bit long in the tooth now. That one, I think
it's possible these leaks are not referring to like Part 3; they're referring to more factions. These could be characters in factions.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for very story focused multiplayer. Even though it's multiplayer, I'm still expecting Naughty Dog to put their story stamp on it and it feel like a single player game with multiplayer kind of powering the whole thing. But they are just leaks as it stands. Of course, there is usually some truth that these two insiders are quite decent for other leaks. So we'll again take it with a pinch of salt, but no doubt we'll be hearing about that at some point in the future. One thing we will also get in the imminent future is EA Sports FC, and it's seemingly to nobody's surprise, Richie, is that EA Sports FC 23, as it will probably be known, is going to take the launch slot of FIFA. It's no surprise. The rumoured leak this week comes reporting from Push Square here, and where's the leak gone? I've lost it. EA Play members receive a 10-hour trial notice, but the 22nd of September 2023 is the report. FIFA usually comes out in September. EA Sports FC is going to come out in September. Who would have guessed?
It's a name change, not rewriting the rulebook here. I know they've been talking big about, this is going to be like the best thing we've ever done. It's like, but they say that every year.
They do.
This is my expectations for EA Sports FC is literally just to be the next EA FIFA game, just with a different title.
Yeah, I have noticed.
They'll probably do some like menu. I think this is an opportunity for them to throw away the current menu, like stylization and stuff, and freshen that up.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, under the scenes, it's just going to be pretty much the next FIFA game.
Yeah, it's ticking over nicely. And I know we usually say, like, do we buy it? I kind of think I'm going to buy this year just because it's the first of a brand new iteration of marketing. Just to have that, like, that physical copy of the first ever EA Sports. And it's interesting, actually. I don't know if you've noticed about the marketing, if you follow them on social media and such. The way they're seemingly marketing this is just calling it FC. So I think everyone's going to ditch the EA Sports element and just call it FC 22. So it's as short as they can get it to FIFA. And I think people are going to... Do you know that terminology? Do you want a game of FIFA? Do you fancy a game of FIFA? I think they're going to hopefully market this to a point where it's like, do you want a game of FC? Let's play FC. Richie, do you want a match on FC? And I think that's the nearest they're going to get to FIFA without the branding. And if you look on the Twitter account, it says FC 24. So I just said 23, but it looks like the first game's actually going to be called FC 24. Which...
Well, that makes sense because EA Sports is the parent company and they have restructured a bit EA, haven't they? Yeah. So, like, to separate EA Games and EA Sports. Mm-hmm. So, EA Sports is just the parent company, then it's just FC 24, 25, 26, 27.
I can see it. Now I've, like, seen it visually. Yeah. To my brother, to you, do you fancy a game of FC? Yeah, let's do it. And I actually think as new generations come through, the FIFA moniker will just slowly be phased out. So, yeah. FC24 is the next one, coming September 22nd, 2023. It is a shame it's never ready for the start of the season, though. Like, when all the hype is around in August, when the Premier League kicks off, the Bundesliga, French League One, everything like that. Not the MLS.
Especially nowadays, it's almost like they're locked into the traditional release date. But nowadays, they have multiple patches throughout the air, so it's not just
so would it matter? Yeah.
So, yeah, you get your squad roster update all the time.
As soon as you boot up the game, it does it, yeah.
It basically once a week you can get like an update of squads and like stats and stuff. So it's.
I was there when you had to go on your PC, download the roster update, transfer it through
was there
a
before
USB
that
stick.
Was possible.
Well, that too, yeah.
I have FIFA 98 on PC.
I had it on Sega Mega Drive.
The squads are just fixed.
Mega Drive? No, I had FIFA 90.
No, it would have been
World Cup Soccer 90. I had the Brazil World Cup one, I think. But either way, we digress. Yeah. Moving over to a different type of game. Hitman developer IO Interactive, who are working on Project 007 and presumably another Hitman game at some point, and Project Fantasy, the Xbox exclusive game, have announced that they've opened up their new studio in sunny Brighton in the UK, which marks the 5th studio after already having offices in Copenhagen, Malmö, Barcelona and Istanbul. All 5 studios will be working across multiple upcoming projects, helping work and rediscover what it means to be an IO game. Not really much of a new story. I did kind of hope Rob was here for this, because Rob's probably the only one of us 3 who've been to Brighton. I know he does a lot of business there, even as recent as just, I think, 2 months ago he was down in Brighton. It's a very up-and-coming place.
My granddad was from Brighton. I've never been.
Neither. It's so far away from the northeast where we live.
Yeah,
no surprise.
Southerner.
1/4.
I could see Brighton becoming a hotbed for games, so it feels like that sort of place.
It's just outside of London enough to not have the financial woes.
It's got close enough links to London, so for that international businessy stuff, you can be there. It feels like the sort of like quite liberal place. It feels like the British version of Montreal.
Potentially, yeah. And the football team, back to EA Sports FC, is doing wonders as well. And it seems to be a very up-and-coming place to be. And after all, we all do love to be beside the seaside. So enjoy it, Seagull fans. Moving on, though, to other studio news. Tencent has also invested in the UK games industry, opening up a new not opening up, but investing in a new AAA studio from Playground Games co-founder. Reading from Eurogamer, Tencent has made it a massive investment into Lighthouse Games, which is founded by previous Playground co-founder Gavin Rayburn, who you'll know from the Forza Horizon franchise. In late 2022, he founded the game, so just last year, to aim to create new genre-defining franchises, was the word on the official website. However, Tencent, reading from a statement from them, the investment anchors Lighthouse Games as a stable and serious contender in a sea of uncertainty, referring to the studio's opening goal of becoming one of the UK's top AAA studios, with significant changes behind the development scenes. The studio is currently working on a brand new unnamed project. So we don't know how much they've invested, Richie, but this is Tencent spreading out its tendrils and getting into loads of different elements of the games industry. Now they seemingly are not just going for the big existing ones, but also the up-and-coming ones. And don't know how much they put in, but my guess is the studio's done enough early doors, kind of like how Haven did it with Jade Raymond, where they started off from scratch, they started to build on a project, and PlayStation looked at them and went, this works, let's buy them. Tencent don't seem to be in the buying acquisition element, but they do a lot of heavy investment in these studios, so they've got like shares.
That makes me think whatever they're working on is probably going to be games as a servicey kind of thing, because if Tencent are investing, that's where they're going to see probably the biggest return.
Mm-hmm.
And with Gavin being founding Playground, previously working on things like Forza Horizon, whether it's a racing game or not,
I don't think it will be.
I'd imagine if he was happy to keep making racing games, he just would have stuck around with Playground, because why would you leave it? You have one of the biggest racing games in the world, and you are the studio. Was he the studio head?
He's one of the co-founders.
One of the co-founders, yeah. So it's like, you've basically built this franchise, so surely if you're going to leave, it's because you want to spread your wings a bit.
Although I should say that, ironically enough, Playground are working on the next Fable game as well as Horizon, so he could have worked on a non-car game. But yeah, again, that seems to be the trend in recent years, is people get so high up at these studios They want to then branch out
stop
and do their own
making
thing.
games.
They want to branch
Stop
out.
making games and start running a business.
Yeah. It's like, I would not be surprised if Cory Barlog or Neil Druckmann left Naughty Dog and Sony Santa Monica respectively, and then just open their own small studio, and then Sod's Law get bought by Sony anyway. But then in-house, they'll have like multiple avenues. We've seen it. Like Jade Raymond is a great example of that, launching Haven. Lighthouse is another good example. So what's great is that I think they are like perpetually growing the industry. In a world of acquisitions where Microsoft and everyone's out to just buy everyone, we need those gaps filled to create third-party content, and all these, experienced senior people who've got some fantastic credits under the belt, them taking a chunk of their own money and investing it into creating a brand new studio means for us more games, more variety, more artistic input, wider teams, and even though they'll probably end up getting bought eventually if they put out anything remotely good, that cycle should just completely start, and maybe they'll all end up in Brighton.
Maybe.
Moving on, though, for the final few stories of the week. Friday the 13th, just a nice quick one for Friday the 13th. They've decided to absolutely unlock everything for everyone before it disappears for good. Of course, we reported a few weeks back that Friday the 13th licensing was over, and it will shut down and leave the PlayStation Store this December 31st, which sadly is still not a Friday, actually, which... it's a shame, but could have been nice. And the best way, according to one of the developers, they tweeted out this week saying the best way we knew how to give you, the players, the best experience and heartfelt thank you as we move towards an inevitable goodbye was to basically just release everything. So the official account tweeted out saying, to help reduce the dependence on our database servers, the following changes will be made for all players from July the 6th. So as of now, it's available now. All legendary perks, everyone gets them. Popular perks, everyone gets them. No negative effect. The players are allowed to reach level 150. All kill types are unlocked. All challenge skulls are unlocked. No XP or CP, and it just goes straight into just you've got everything, and there'll be no matchmaking functionality lost. So it seems like just to say goodbye, Richie, they're just opening up the casket and just giving everyone everything. So if you've been a long-standing Friday the 13th player, you bought some of the DLC, doesn't matter because it's all going to be there for you before the game dies.
It's a nice move. Give people a chance to just experience everything that the game has to offer until it's gone.
Yeah, you might as well, right? What's the point in gatekeeping it?
Yeah, if you're not making any more money out of it now.
Yeah, I mean, I think when they announced the closure, they dropped everything like DLC wise down to like 99 pence or cents. So it's like,
and they probably didn't see that much in terms of sales, probably because I'd imagine if you're still hardcore in it, you've probably got everything you want.
Yeah,
and if you're not, even 99 cents is probably, well, why? I imagine they saw a spike in users going back to play who haven't played in a while, but probably not that much in terms of additional sales.
Yeah. Well, there's no
So if you're looking at them numbers and go, let's just give them everything.
Yeah. We've got one more Halloween in them. Enjoy the Halloween and then enjoy all your freebies and unlocks. But it's a nice way to say goodbye. It is indeed. Moving on to our final story of the week. Documents freshly uncovered from 1996, which is nice. I always like to end the shows on a nice little fun one. Reveal that Sega was so confident in killing Sony back in 1996 that we've got some interesting excerpts to read. An email from Sega of America's former CEO, Tom Kalinske, had particularly bold claims about the Sega Saturn success, highlighted in a tweet from Mega Drive Shock, which you can go follow them. The email was sent on March 28, 1996, 2 months before the Sega Saturn infamously stealth launched in the United States. I'll just read the full thing out because it's funny in its entirety. So this is sending it to the team at Sega, and what's funny, the first thing that stood out for me is back in 1996, everyone's email address at work has got like @255SLMac. It's like, you know, like when email addresses were just horrendous, like the domain names were just not like, it wasn't like Gmail or Hotmail, it was all like clunky business numbers and stuff, like code. The subject of the email: Saturn's success in Japan. It is what, again, reading verbatim, it is one thing to hear read about how well we're doing in Japan versus Sony. It's another to personally witness it. I just visited 10 retail stores in Tokyo. It's now spring break, so the crowds, teens, college kids are huge. We are killing Sony. In every store, Saturn hardware is sold out, and there are stacks of PlayStations. The retailers commented they can't compare the true sales rate because the Saturn sells out before they can even measure it accurately. Our interactive displays are better, our software displays and stocking is far superior. It's not unusual to see 40 or 50 copies of Panzer, Dragoon I think it is, or Virtua Fighter 2 stocked in even small stores, and they are selling fast. I wish I could get all of our staff, salespeople, retailers, analysts, media, etc. to see and understand what is happening in Japan. Then they would understand why we will win in the US eventually. How do we show this at E3, Tom? And famously, Sega went on to announce the Sega Saturn at E3, and it launched then. It was available immediately, and unfortunately, the rest is history. The likes of Panzer Dragoon, Virtua Fighter, Guardian Heroes, Nights into Dreams, and much more did not propel the Sega Saturn into success in the US. And it's just interesting that this has came out 30 years later, plus 30 years, and we get an insight into the head honchos over at Sega going like, guys, we've got this.
I mean,
we've struck gold.
Yeah. What he said is probably right, but I think what he didn't count for was you could get your PS1 chipped and then buy counterfeit games for like a $5, which meant the PS1 in the UK, I don't know what it was like in other countries, became very appealing as a way of getting a lot of games cheap.
Cheap
as by being chips. A dirty criminal, but still, we all did this.
Hey, I didn't do it. I was 6-year-old.
Yes,
my dad might have done.
Your parents did, yeah.
Or my dad's friend is who lives around the
corner.
But
yeah, I think that's one of the things that definitely contributed to the PlayStation 1 success in the UK. Is like everyone knew a guy who could chip your PlayStation and then sell you counterfeit games.
I mean, even just looking at the launch lineup of the PS1, like it's no like Panzer Dragoon, Virtua Fighter, are just nowhere near the likes of Crash Bandicoot and some of the other ones up there with like mascots. It is just mad to think like at that time Sega, obviously they had lots of bravado off the back of the Mega Drive to then go into this next generation like you would do. Like they did great to compete with Nintendo, and again it was Sega does what Nintendo, and like that whole marketing campaign was fantastic for them. But then the Saturn did what it did. The only person I ever know.
Yeah, Sony came along and went, hold my sake.
Yeah, indeed. Obviously, they'd had another crack at the whip with the Dreamcast, and unfortunately, I think they just ran out of steam by then. But it is a shame. It would be nice to think of us living in a world right now, Richie, with like 5 competitors going still. We might have had another Sega. We might have had a Panasonic or an Atari out there doing its thing.
I don't think the world misses a Sega console, because I think Sega, in hindsight, made absolutely the right decision to end things with the Dreamcast and focus on just making games. Now we still get Sega games. We get lots of them. Oops. Probably more so than when they were at the height in terms of like consoles. So I don't think the world's... Imagine if like PlayStation went now and Sony went, we're not making the box anymore. You can just get all of our games on Xbox and on Switch.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't miss the box because you're still getting the games.
Yeah.
That's effectively what's happened with... We had this sort of conversation was actually happening on the back of the Wii U.
Yeah, Nintendo.
Should Nintendo follow Sega's thing and would just get Nintendo games released on other platforms? Which I still think I would prefer in a weird way. Although I do love the Switch's portability.
Yeah.
Imagine if Tears of the Kingdom was developed for the PS5 rather than the Switch.
Tell you what, Pokemon Violet and Scarlet would run a damn sight better, that's for sure.
I wouldn't guarantee that one.
Well, maybe not. But yeah, what a world we could live in. I think it's just a nice, interesting tidbit from history there of Sega's bravado heading in the United States. Part of me thinks it was just the stealth launch. Like, if you want people to go and spend £400 on a console, maybe give them a bit of notice so they can save for it or prepare for it, or maybe look at the game catalogue, see what games they fancy, check out a magazine or an advert or two. But we digress. Maybe we'll find out a secret message will drop from this very show in 30 years' time. It'll be like, wow, that's what was going on behind the scenes. That's why Rob isn't really there today. I'm joking. He's alive and well. We'll see him next week. But that has been it.
Seen him today.
Oh, we have, and we're both a bit summoned. You know what? If anyone goes back and watches this episode, I've been itching myself. I don't know if I've caught the sun. I've been bit by loads of little bugs down the beach. But my word, I need to go put some sun cream on or something.
It was quite sunny.
I'm itchy. So apologies to any audio listeners who think, what's that scratching noise for the last 59 minutes? It's me.
Video listeners can tell it's quite sunny because behind me is just illuminated.
You've got to glow up like an angel. But that has been Talking the PS for episode number 56 of your weekly PlayStation show, brought to you by myself, Chris, and my man of many pixels, Mr. Richie, back from his jolly hollies, and he's with us to talk about video games. Check out the rest of the content on the channel. XPass went up yesterday. Talking the PS available now. We will have a live stream this week. I'm actually keen, Richie, on maybe starting a series of some sort of. It's been a while since we've got down and knuckled down on consistently for something. We've always dabbled in a couple of things, but we'll talk about that behind the scenes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all that great content, and we'll see you next week. My name's been Chris.
And I've been Richie.
We've been Helix Plays Games, talking the PS. Have a great week, folks, and play whatever makes you the happiest. Goodbye.
Bye.